Hi guys, hope everyone's well. Thanks for tuning in. In this latest video, we're back on my workbench. After the last couple where we were weathering stuff, this time decided to go the other way around and actually have a look at removing some weathering. The target for today is going to be this Hornby Class 31270. This is a model I recently picked up very cheaply on eBay. It's a model that's famous for suffering from Mazak rot, which means the chassis falls to pieces essentially. And what tends to happen on these is that the chassis expands inside the body and cracks the body. Fortunately, the previous owner of this had picked up on the Mazak rot happening and had foresight to chop the ends of the chassis off before it pushed out and ruined the body. So that's all good stuff. So actually, it's slightly unusual. This model in that the buffer beams and the couplings are all connected to the body shell rather than the chassis, as was the case on the original Hornby model. It was also sold as a non-runner, and it comes in a weathered finish, which is weathered by Hornby as it came from the factory. Unfortunately, during this point in history, which was kind of the mid-2000s, Hornby's idea of factory weathering was just to cake everything in a funny brown colour, which doesn't really look anything like track dirt. Certainly doesn't go with the weathering scheme I use on my usual models, and just generally looks a bit naff. So what I want to do today is I'm going to get some car polish and we're just going to work that weathering back in the hope that we can make things look a lot better. I've already done one side, so our target is going to be to transform the model into something that looks like this. You'll notice I've taken the numbers off. That is because I'm modelling early 1973 for my layout, so it's before the tops numbering was put on the side of locos. So I will be adding a 4-digit number once we finish cleaning this up. Now, I said that this was sold as a non-working model. Taking the body shell off when it arrived, there's a fairly obvious reason why it doesn't work, which is that there is no motor. So I've ordered a new motor and drive shafts. They cost about 20 quid, which keeps the total cost of this model well under £70, which is hugely cheaper than it would have cost me to buy one brand new. Doesn't bother me just adding the motor. It's a very easy job to do. 2 wires to it, connect that to a DCC chip, and we'll rewire the bogie pickups on that. So that's all well and good. I was quite happy when I found that was all that was wrong with it. You'll see on this side of the body, as I say, take the number off and clean the weathering back. I haven't bothered with the grills. Usually I'll paint the grills as part of the weathering process. I've also cleaned the windows quite significantly. I don't think the drivers Aslev Union would have been happy with the windows as they were originally, which are absolutely filthy and you'd never be able to see through in a million years if you were a driver or a second man. So that is about it for now. I've already pulled the head codes out, which I will change into 4-digit train code head codes rather than the dominoes which were in there before. And I've also super glued the doors shut because on these models Hornby made them so they open. However, they don't open in a particularly prototypical fashion. They spring shut again, so it's a bit of a novelty, and actually from a weathering perspective it just gets in the way of things. So we'll pick this up in a second and let's get cleaning. So there's not a huge amount we need for this exercise. Got a bundle of cotton buds for removing the dirt. Got a modelling knife just to pick up any polish which gets into any of the joints, and I've got some polish. Now I'm using 3M Fast Cut Plus, which is a very abrasive polish. You can use, this is quite expensive, you can use something that's much cheaper, readily available, although I do find this is very good in that it requires less effort because it's more abrasive, so it's almost like quite a thick paste. So I'm just going to give the bottle a quick shake, which will whop some up into the lid of the bottle. Just take the top off, and you can see more than enough contained within the lid. Don't need to squirt it out. I'll just dip the cotton bud straight into that and use it as a pot for the polish in its own right. That's nice and easy. So I think that is all we need. I can't think of anything else, so let's get going. So first things first, we're just going to grab ourselves a cotton bud. We've got the polish in the lid of the polish pot. Just going to take a very small amount. You put too much on, you're just going to make a mess all over your body side. And what we're going to do is work in vertical streaks up and down the body. We'll start with a light application of pressure and sort of regulate it as we see fit. We need to be careful not to apply too much pressure, because there's always the risk with these things that we take the paint off underneath as well, which clearly isn't what we're looking to do today. So just keep working the cotton bud, rotate the cotton bud so it doesn't get too clogged up with paint, and we're literally, as you can see, removing that weathering coat off the top of the BR blue paint below. Already things are starting to look better. By working vertically only with the cotton bud, we're simulating the effect of the rain, having washed the dirt down the body sides. There's some bits on this model where it's quite tricky to actually clean the weathering off by using solely vertical streaks. So as you can just see there, I'm using a horizontal pattern just to take the dirt off, and then we're revisiting again with a vertical streak once the dirt is principally clean. The last thing we want is for dirt to be smeared horizontally across the body side. It will just not look right at all. So at the moment we're just finishing off that particular body section. You'll see there's a small amount of dirt still left on there, sort of streaked around the panel lines in the window, but we've removed a huge amount from the body side. So we're going to start a new cotton bud and carry on going. So we need to be a lot more careful where there's a printed decal on the side of the body, in this case the BR arrow. We're working very gently over the top of that, just more streaks with the cotton bud, but with less pressure applied. If we apply too much pressure, we risk taking the printing of the decal itself off, and we'll end up with no BR arrow there. Not disaster, because we can reapply a new transfer over the top, but clearly if we don't have to do that, that's advantageous. As you can see, I'm basically treating each segment of the body side in its own merit, trying to finish or clean up each one before moving on to the next, just to keep things under control, make sure we don't get too much polish on the side of the model. Where I'm cleaning the windows, I'm just popping my thumb behind the plastic moulding, just so we don't push the glazing out while rubbing it with the cotton bud. The windows on the side of the body still benefit from being cleaned up. I'm being very gentle here, applying polish and wiping it off around the cab glazing. Because of the modifications of this model, I can't get the cab interior out without some severe leverage, which I want to avoid, so I'm just applying minimal pressure to make sure I don't push any of the windows out of their out of the glue that holds them in place. This is the reason we glued the doors shut before we started. With the opening mechanism on them, I would be opening the door every time I applied any pressure to it, which makes things really tricky as far as removing the polish is concerned. So avoiding doing that, just holding the door shut with glue makes life 100 times easier. Moving on to the other end of the body where we've got a lot of grills, and I'm using even less polish than was the case at the other end, just being very, very minimalist. If some goes into the grills, as you can see it's not the end of the world, you just have to clean it out afterwards. It's much easier not to have to do that though, and keeping the amount of polish that goes into those grills to a minimum is definitely something that saves a bit of time later on. So as I said at the start of the video, we're going to be taking numbers that Hornby print at the factory off this model, and we're going to be renumbering it to an earlier number. As I said when we were looking at the BR arrow, the polish is more than capable of taking the printing off if we're not careful. As you can see here, we're just working it back. We're already starting to take some of the depth out of the printing, and we'll just carry on over the top of this lettering and the tops panel till it's gone completely. We'll be left with a plain blue body side that we can reapply the transfers to afterwards. So there we've got a pretty reasonably weathered model. I'm going to add some more to this of my own weathering over the top, but the model could equally go along like it is now perfectly well. We've still got a few bits of polish left on the side of the model, bit of residue. So what I'm doing now is I've taken a clean cotton bud and we're just working over the body side, again working top to bottom, bottom to top, just keeping the strokes vertically. And what this is doing is shining up the paint that's underneath. Gives it quite a nice prototypical shine, like the logo's been through the train wash a few times. At this end of the loco where the number used to be, the polish is also going to do a great job of providing a bit of a sheen, which will provide a great base for applying water slide transfers over, help to disguise the backing paper that the water slide transfers sit on. You should always try and apply transfers over a semi-gloss or gloss base for best results. It doesn't sit well on matte at all. So we've just got that nice bit of a shine there. Finally, where we've got a few bits where there's little piles of polish caught in corners that haven't been picked up by the cotton bud, just going to use the back of a knife blade, dig these out using the knife blade, sort of things like panel lines like we're doing here. Obviously need to be quite careful doing this, only apply a very small amount of pressure, otherwise you might slip with the knife and ruin the model. And then we're just going to polish that off again using a cotton bud. It doesn't need to be a fresh one. You can see I'm using one that's already got some polish on it. But this just removes any sort of piles of polish that have got caught in the corners. And that's about that. I think that looks miles better than it did before we started. I've done the ends as well, exactly the same as we did the body sides, just on the yellow instead of the blue. Got a nice prototype sheen to it. We've got some dirt build up around the raised details. I'm going to paint the grills in a grimy colour as part of my next phase of weathering. I'll also airbrush a bit of dirt over the lower body sides and the bogies, but it won't be as filthy as it was before we started. I've also got a couple of bits to do backdating the model before it's ready to enter traffic on my layout, but I think that looks miles better than it did before we started. So thanks for watching. Do check out our blog, which is otcm.wordpress.com. We generally write a couple of posts on there a month, depending on how busy we are. And we'll see you next time. Please do like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.